Digimon has always been a series that's had a very rocky history when it comes to video games. They're not always very good, they don't always come out of Japan, they're few and far between, and they're always very different. Sometimes it's a digital pet kind of game, sometimes it's a turn based RPG with monster catching mechanics, and sometimes they're tactical RPGs. As is the case with today's game, Digimon Survive. Even though tactical RPGs are not my thing, I was very excited for this game since day one. Like I said, they're very few and far between. Sometimes it can take years before we see another Digimon game. So I always like to try to support it as best I can when they do come out. So, was it worth it? Did this game hold up? And can it appeal to somebody who doesn't like tactical RPGs like me? Let's find out. Here for my very first ever review, Digimon Survive. The story, in Digimon fashion of course, takes place at a camp, much like the original anime. Before that, however, the game opens with a brother and sister, Haru and Miyuki, disappearing from being attacked by these strange shadowy creatures. That's when our main cast of camp kids comes into it. You have Takuma, who's like the leader of the group and the main character of course. Minoru, who's like the wisecracking, high energy best friend kind of character. You have Aoi, who's like the typical caring character, who's the more level-headed and mature character in the group, being one of the oldest. You have Saki, who's like the extroverted, happy, eccentric girl. You have Shuji, who's the oldest of the group, who tries to take on a leadership position too and take responsibility for the rest of the kids. There's Rio, who beyond his tough guy delinquent exterior is more scared and troubled by all of what's going on than anybody else. And half the time the only reason he goes along with everybody is because he's scared of staying alone. They're also joined by a brother and sister who aren't part of the camp but live in the area, which is Kaito, who's the older brother, who is mainly focused on taking care of his sister throughout the whole thing, even if he gets a bit overprotective. And of course the little sister Miyu, who's a bit of a weird character, who's kind of opposite to Kaito in being more carefree and mischievous. And she's the one who sneaks the entire group into this situation unintentionally. There's also the professor who none of them know, who is this old man who seems to know a bit more about it but assumes all of the stuff is fake before it all happens. And of course there's a mysterious brother and sister, Haru and Miyuki, from the start of the game too. They're both pretty deadpan and say very few words, and are very weird and seem out of place. But that's all the characters, or at least all the main characters. They all get partnered with their own Digimon of course, some very familiar to fans of the anime, some pretty new. Throughout the game they will all grow closer and realise more about each other, their Digimon partners, and of course themselves. While the story isn't exactly anything overly unique or spectacular or groundbreaking, it has a surprisingly compelling, interesting, and sometimes even really creepy mysteries going on. You have the characters getting garbled texts, weird things going on in the mysterious world, like in amusement parks, dams or schools tossed into this foresty area that you spend most of your time in. And the fantastic music and characters definitely help with this too. There's also a few little things like certain Digimon that will appear and certain things that will happen that really make it clear that these developers or somebody involved with this game really did love the Digimon world. And it definitely brought an excited smile to my face a few times. However, the story can drag a bit and be a bit repetitive, especially near the end. No spoilers for obvious reasons. But often it will do things like having you split up from the party, and then you'll have to repeat the same basic structure with most, if not every character, until you are back as a complete group. Which is fine sometimes and helps learn more about each character, but considering it happens so many times, it really can weigh down the pacing a little bit. And sometimes the cutscenes and when it cuts to battle, for example, can be really disjointed. For example, Takuma will attack an enemy in a cutscene, and then it will cut to a battle where Aoi and Labramon are struggling to beat it, despite somebody else attacking in the cutscene, or having Minoru in a battle against multiple opponents and struggling, despite his friends all being in the same area, less than 10 feet away, but they treat it like he's completely by himself. And it doesn't happen too much, but it is very noticeable when it does. It can also have some weird time wasting repetition, like at the amusement park, for example. You were stuck talking for like 10 or 15 minutes trying to argue your way around three very weak Digimon to let you inside. Despite the fact you were trying to find somebody missing who you don't even know if you're safe or alive. And you let a group of like 8 people be pushed out by 3 Digimon who they had already compared to being like weak toddlers. That can be pretty infuriating to watch. While we're on the topic, let's get to the characters. While at first glance they might appear to be your basic shallow JRPG anime archetypes, the jokester, the motherly one, the stern good student, the airhead, etc., they have so much more qualities and depth to them than first appearances would suggest. Minoru might be the best friend, high energy character who makes a lot of jokes and silly comments, but he also tries to keep everyone else's spirits up by doing this, while also dealing with his own insecurities and weaknesses. Saki might be a bit of an airhead looking character at first, but she's blunt, upfront, and sometimes is the first person to notice things, and tries to be friends with and connect with anybody, even if they might not appreciate it at first. Kaito will always do his best to be protective of his little sister, despite coming across as a bit cold at first. Kaito, by the way, is probably my favourite character, and the one I connect with the most. Not only a dedicated and loving brother despite having flaws with that, he is also the only one to absolutely snap when he is looking for his little sister and everyone just stands around talking for way too long. Like I already mentioned with the amusement park, everyone else goes back and forth trying to find other solutions for entering, and he just loses it. He has his priorities, and I respect that a lot. It connected with my feelings perfectly at that moment. It helps too that they're not overly stupid or slow to catch on. A lot of games like this have characters, or at least some characters, be extremely surprised and shocked for way too long when figuring out things that the audience realised 2 hours ago, but they don't do that here. Sometimes the characters will say it themselves, or say that's what I thought when they find out stuff. Even some weird surprising stuff. It really helps dial back the frustration of repeating the same explanation or treating you like an idiot who never experienced a story before. The only character I kinda hate was Shuji, but I think that was intentional. The gameplay in this is a mix between visual novel to tell the story, meaning lots and lots of reading of course, usually having a brief conversation in one location before moving on to the next, sometimes with choices of where to go, or in what order you will do it in, or being able to revisit locations to collect items or hidden documents and the like. Mostly fine, but it can be a pretty boring way of searching around. There can also be limited free time, which gives you a certain number of opportunities to choose who to talk to and who to grow your bond with. Similar to Persona 5, which can increase your affinity to help in battle and grow closer to the characters. Speaking of battle, the thing that made me the most nervous when picking up this game before I did was the battle system. It's a pretty basic tactical RPG, which I am really not into. It's just a genre I was never good at, and can never really properly wrap my head around. Nothing strongly against them, I'm just typically not very good at them. I couldn't get past the third or fourth level in Final Fantasy Tactics games, and in XCOM I lasted about an hour. This time around, however, it was absolutely fine. I can't comment on what makes a good tactical RPG, not being familiar with them in the slightest, but if you are worried about picking up this game because you are concerned with the difficulty or your own lack of skill when it comes to this genre, don't worry in the slightest, you will be absolutely fine. I played this game on normal mode and had very little trouble. A few battles gave me 3, maybe 4 attempts, but there's also an easy mode and a very easy mode, if you get stuck. There's also plenty of stat increasing items. Like I said, I barely had any trouble with it at all, and I ignored most of these. I think I used like 2 and the game was pretty easy on normal. But by the end of the game, I had 11 HP increasing items that increased 30 HP each, 15 for physical attack which increased by 10 each, 9 for defense. You get the idea. Not to mention that there's a free battle option, so you can fight against Digimon to level up or to recruit them, which we'll get to in a sec. So if you are stuck, as long as you use these items, grind, or are okay lowering the difficulty, I can't imagine anybody having any problems here. The battle system itself is basic enough. You move a certain number of spaces, then you choose between a regular attack which costs no SP, or a special move that's more powerful but does deplete your limited SP count. And attacking from the side or the back will considerably increase your damage. You can use items to heal HP, SP, or status effects like freeze or confusion, and you can Digivolve, which transforms your Digimon into a stronger form at the cost of a bit of SP at the start of every turn. And lastly, there's the talk mechanic. One time per enemy Digimon, you can attempt to talk to them, which boils down to the target saying a line of dialogue, and then you choose between one of 4 responses, again similar to Persona 5. I like how it's done here a bit better though. There not only seems to be a theme to whatever response they will like some like you being nice to them, some like a more direct approach, but every individual Digimon likes the same responses, meaning every Gotsumon will react the same way as another, every Leomon will react the same as another Leomon. It feels a lot more manageable that way. If you fail, the punishment is that they will get amped up in a sense and their stats will increase. But if you succeed, you have the option to have them join your party or to give you an item and then leave. I guess the only 2 problems that really frustrate me about it are the fact that you might have to retry a battle, which could require you to Digivolve 5 or 6 times at the start again. And even though they are short animations, doing it so many times at the beginning every time can be tiresome. And the fact that you can't just skip the dialogue before a battle really can slow things down in a very needless way. You can fast forward, which helps a bit, but you can't just outright skip the entire thing, which can lead to watching a Digimon Digivolve in a cutscene before a battle, and then dialogue you have to skip through, and then having one turn in battle, then more skipping for a cutscene and another Digivolving, and it all just feels incredibly pointless instead of just letting you pause, skip to the battle, like most games in the last 15 years. It just feels really outdated in that regard. But they do have a suspend save feature to let you take a break in battle in case you need to turn it off or leave, which is something I think every game needs. Overall though, its difficulty was more than okay for me, and it was fun enough to make me want to do it a bunch of times just for fun, even when I didn't have to. And with roughly 150 Digimon to collect in battle and to Digivolve, there really is a nice amount to keep you going. And the Digimon sprites in battle being absolutely beautiful definitely helps a lot and makes it more palatable when you do have to do it multiple times. Being a visual novel style game, you spend a lot of time looking at characters standing against backdrops, but thankfully it's all really nice scenery, it's all really colourful and appealing to look at. The game even opens with a really beautiful animated cutscene, but unfortunately it only happens at once at the beginning, so it's kind of disappointing there's not more of them, but I'm still happy it was there. You also get a really awe-inspiring look at your main party's Digimon every time they Digivolve for the first time, and with the music accompanying all of it, it really is a sight to behold every time it happens. The music overall is pretty fantastic in this game, whether it's the beautiful piano music in the opening, the already mentioned Digivolving scene theme music, or the creepy background music whenever something strange happens. And the theme song that plays on the title screen is definitely one of the best I've ever heard. It's up there with Dearly Beloved from the Kingdom Hearts games title screens. I would say some of my biggest complaints about the game are the already mentioned things like the bad checkpoints and unskippable cutscenes, but the translation can be really awful at times. Like, possibly one of the worst I've ever seen in my life. Not speaking Japanese, I can't comment on the reliability of the translation for 99% of the game, but there is a lot of mistakes that even I could notice. From characters' names using the wrong pronouns, they call the professor a she and then a he in the next line of dialogue, or a character's name coming up in the spoken dialogue but not showing up in the text, or vice versa. Words straight up missing from the text, using the wrong names when referring to a character, or even the wrong character speaking a line and having a mini argument with themselves. Near the end, I noticed more than a handful of these mistakes in a single chapter, and it really makes me wonder if that's how much I picked up on, how much is being translated wrong that I couldn't notice. And at one point, I swear they left in a developer's note. Like, look at this and tell me it doesn't look like they left that in by mistake. Like when they leave in weird notes to remind people to remove textures from a game. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's how it looks to me. Also, the tutorial for the first time around really drags hard. It is unskippable and goes on for multiple hours where every little thing is explained to you and then you are required to do the actions yourself. It really just feels a bit extreme. Especially if you've played any RPG before, this will feel insanely hand-holdy for at least 5 or 6 hours. But it is skippable the second time around on a New Game Plus, which lets you carry over your levels, collectibles, items, and the Digimon you caught, all the Digimon you saw, and you also get to change little things in the story and have a new set of fights with some extra difficulty. So there is a little bit of post-game content and replay value too. But considering all the stuff I love about this game, these are pretty small problems to get past. This game is such a roller coaster of emotions that I went from laughing at it to being charmed by it to almost tearing up. I even spent one chapter practically yelling at certain characters for a while. So it's safe to say I was more invested in this game than most games I play, even for characters I didn't like too much. I finished this game over the course of roughly 2 weeks, playing for multiple hours every night, and for 90% of it, I was sucked in and having an amazing experience. This game will probably last you somewhere between 30 to 40 hours for the main first playthrough, assuming you don't get stuck anywhere. Whether or not I would recommend this game, it depends. If you are a fan of visual novels, I think you could definitely appreciate and enjoy the characters and the mystery. I think it is great at keeping you invested and wondering what will happen next and how it will all end. And if you are a fan of Digimon, I definitely think seeing the new Digimon and digivolving them into different forms will definitely be a treat, as it always is. Like I already said, not a tactical RPG guy, so it's hard to say if this is worth it for somebody based solely on their love of that genre. But realistically, the battles are more of an in-between feature to the story and the visual novel elements. But I do hope this game does well. If nothing else, just to show that there is an interest in the Digimon gaming market still. Because I always love to see more Digimon games releasing, especially in the West. So overall, with such an amazing experience and a great time with this story and these characters, and the negatives being relatively minor for the most part, or at least short-lived, I'm going to give Digimon Survive an 8 out of 10. I hope to see more from these developers, hopefully with better translators and some slightly better gameplay the next time around, and maybe with a bit more of an interesting exploration mechanic. Thanks so much for watching my very first review. Please let me know what you thought about this game too. I want to hear people's thoughts from different backgrounds. Digimon lovers, but also people who knew nothing about it beforehand. And if you're a big fan of the tactical RPG genre, let me know how this game fares in that regard too. So again, thank you so much for watching. I hope to do more of these in the future. See you next time.